Welcome back to the C-Space studio here at CES 2025. I am James Kotecki here with not one, but two great guests. All the way to my left, Marc Grabowski, Chief Operating Officer, Integral Ad Science, and Kristi Argyilan, Global Head of Uber Advertising at Uber, obviously, to my immediate left. And Marc, thanks for sponsoring the C-Space studio here. Integral Ad Science has been our sponsor now for 2 years. Not only do you bring sponsorship, you also bring great insights to the studio, and we expect this conversation will be no exception.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to do that. You bring such great brands together, great partners together, and just such great content for the community.
Well, thank you so much. And I don't want to put too much pressure on either of you. I understand you're both relatively new in your roles. Kristi, we were saying this is like day 4 for you at Uber, but you come with obviously so much industry experience. This is going to be a great conversation. But I would like to just know from both of you, Kristi, maybe we'll start with you. What are you up to? What brought you to Uber, and kind of what's your purview there?
Yeah, so you know my history. I've been in the retail media space, the commerce media space, for a while now, in many regards before it was the hot thing to talk about. And what brought me to Uber is really the opportunity to take a business that is loaded with an emotional connection with their customers, and to really take it and bring it to the market in an interesting, scalable, repeatable proposition. And it's an ads business that has an enormous amount of momentum behind it, and because we all personally engage with Uber on a daily basis, and to understand how to bring that to the media sector is really exciting for me.
And these are the ads we see on our devices when we book an Uber, on the backs of the seats when we're in the Uber. This is all the ads in that ecosystem that we're talking about.
That's exactly right.
And Marc, I'd love you to just to kind of define the brand of Integral Ad Science for our viewers, and what your place in the organization is.
I'd be happy to. So I joined about 3 months ago, and I joined as the COO, as you mentioned. I've had a chance to spend a lot of time in the industry, about 25 years in the industry, and I've seen so many different shifts. The biggest shift that we're seeing right now is obviously a shift to everyone's using AI for a lot of different things, but it has to be based on a foundation of trust, integrity, and utilization of data properly. When I joined IAS, I saw that IAS had been used by tremendous brands all over the world for things like brand safety, brand suitability, measurement. But one of the things that was an untapped potential was using that data that's gathered to help drive performance, to help drive better outcomes for customers. And that was something that our product team has had the opportunity to do, great partners have had the opportunity to collaborate on in terms of how we can unleash all of that incredible data, put it in the hands of marketers, put it in the hands of publishers so they can make better decisions for their investments.
Yeah. And Kristi, how important is that from your perspective as the partner, that kind of data, that brand safety element that IAS brings to the table?
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly important space. And when you think of what retail media and commerce media is built on, it's based on first-party data. And it also is an opportunity for brands to engage in a really insightful way with customers, consumers. And so if it's not treated with respect and consideration for what experience that audience wants, the business falls apart. So doing it with integrity and clarity and as much information as we can is incredibly important.
So I'll go back to you, Kristi, and then we'll go to you, Marc. At the beginning here of 2025, we're all about trends and big foresight into what's going to be happening in the year to come. What's exciting to you at the intersection of shopping and media right now? And what are the trends that you're watching for? Some of them you'll be driving, obviously, but what are also the macro trends that you're watching for as the year evolves?
Yeah, I think that one of the places that we've been is that we've just been trying to make retail media in particular just more efficient. So how do we move more campaigns through the system? How do we get more activities live? But now to be able to move to the place where we start to think about, and so that was a lot of that was AI and machine based. Yes. Just how do you carry the volume? Now to move to a place where we can start to pull in more insights and make those insights more actionable is the place that I'm really excited to move into. And then coming out of that is going to be richer content. Because right now we have a lot of real basic blocking and tackling content that we're putting out into the world. How do you get to that richer place where it's really engaging because we have insights in terms of what is that audience doing in that moment, and what kind of content should a brand be putting in front of them.
And Mark, richer data, richer insights, that's really speaking your language, obviously.
It definitely is. Something that you just talked about, we ride along with every single impression for a customer. And I spent about a week and a half in Europe just before the holiday break, and we were talking with brands, and they were saying, you see more interactions with our customers than even our agencies do. Because a global brand might have multiple agency buying strategies, they might have multiple DSPs, but the only company that can see every single interaction with every single customer of these major global brands is IAS. And when we see that, we can gather a lot of insights. We can take the audience strategy, first party and third party audience strategy, and start to marry that to what the users are seeing in context with the type of attention, with the type of sentiment that the content is creating, and being able to bring all of that information back to the brand so they can make better decisions on it. You're right, it is a data strategy, but it's taking a different layer of data.
Kristi talked about moving from a blocking and tackling world into something that's more rich and maybe more nuanced. Maybe that's my term. But in terms of opportunity and potential, Mark, I always struggle with exactly how to ask this question, but it just seems like what you are capable of doing now and what brands are actually doing now and what they will be capable of doing in the very near future, there's so much more opportunity and potential there to reach customers in an effective, efficient, and engaging way. Is there any way that you kind of define or ballpark the amount of opportunity that is still untapped?
Absolutely. So if we think about all of the dollars that are being spent on programmatic, I think it's 88 billion by 2027. Then we think about all of the dollars spent on social and CTV. And then you hear stats, and we've got some research that shows that if people see an ad in context that is not appealing context to them, they're 55% likely to engage with that brand and buy products from that brand. So that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of saying, all right, how do we avoid being around bad areas? But that also gets your brain to start to think about what happens when you're actually engaging with a brand in positive areas, in good areas.
Right.
When we look at video, and we have a technology where we can see frame by frame by frame, every single thing that's shown on a video. Obviously that was used initially for avoidance to make sure you're avoiding bad content. Right. But you can't do that on a manual basis. That is AI driven, and that gives you the opportunity then to say, all right, can we then target? Can we now make sure that we're in the environments where the content is positive? Right. We take that, you start to couple that with contextual targeting, you start to couple that with outcomes and then auction dynamics. Like that is where this space is going.
Yeah, and there's a real big difference between being safe and creating an emotional connection.
Yes.
Very big difference.
Kristi, do you have any bold predictions for the next 5 years is a ridiculous time frame at a place like CES where everything moves so quickly.
Right.
But over the next 5 years, do you have any bold predictions about your industry or your business that people might find implausible, but that you think is possible, but given where we are today?
Oh my gosh. You know what I do? Probably a couple of areas that I'm just super intrigued by. I think the first one is we talk about retail media as being media, but I actually think that there are some component parts of retail media that are even richer for the industry. So audience data, insights, different ways to measure. That gets us out of buying ads only and bringing all of the assets that retail media actually has access to the marketplace in new commercial models. So I think that's going to be really interesting. And then who are the partners and platforms that are fueling that? We have a couple of platforms right now in our space, but there is opportunity for much more significant platform options to come into our space that are a better solution so that you can look at these retail media through an omni-channel sort of way versus tactic by tactic, which is where we are right now.
And from a philosophical perspective, Kristi, how do you do all this in a way that consumers and advertisers and platforms like it and trust it?
Right.
How do you think about that philosophically?
Yeah, I think that's the big question right now, isn't it? And so when you talk to brands, they're spending an enormous amount of time trying to figure out how to answer that question for themselves. I think we as a media sector have to figure out how to drive that even more so. We're doing a lot of work with the IAB on standardization, our whole category is, and I'm personally very involved in that, and I think laying down some of those foundational standards so that we can then get more insightful and creative on top of it is the area that we're leaning into right now.
Mark, we'll give you the last word for any bold thoughts heading into 2025.
Well, I'm so excited to see where the commerce media space is going in general, just to see brands that have been very strong advertisers building a data strategy, becoming destinations. I think that that's a space we're going to continue to see grow. We're going to definitely see people take different sets of data, understand more about that, and really build better connections with their customers. I like what you said, Kristi. So while you might have given me the last word, I'm going to really give that to you. In terms of building the connections, building emotional connections with customers. It's not just bits and bytes, but it's building those emotional connections, building trust, and respecting the trust of your consumers.
Well, Kristi and Mark, thank you so much for joining us here in the C-Space studio. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And of course, thank you to Integral Ad Science for sponsoring. We're going to hear more from Integral Ad Science later as our conversations continue. And we're going to hear from so many leaders here in the C-Space studio that you don't want to miss any of it. This is CES 2025. I'm James Kotecki. It's the C-Space studio. Stay with us.